Spacebird Media.
Why do so many people find solace in the crackle of a vinyl record? Let's dive in. This isn't just another vinyl podcast, it's a journey into the heart of recovery, through the universal language of music. Each week we share powerful stories of overcoming addiction and life's toughest challenges. Together, we'll uncover how the warmth of vinyl can guide us through moments of vulnerability and strength. So, drop the needle, lean in, and let the music heal. Let's get started.
This is Records and Recovery.
And welcome to another episode of Records and Recovery, where we love to talk about the healing power of music, or really just our love of music and how it healed us along the way. So whether it's friends of mine, just great stories I've heard, or artists, or sometimes a little bit of conglomerate of all of that, it's a chance each week just to talk about music. So not only this week is it a longtime friend, but also Velvet Midnight Records recording artist Jason Davis from the Jason Davis Band. So if you can't keep up with one, keep up with the other. But Jason joins us this week on Records and Recovery. What's up, bud?
Hey, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I feel like part of this is you and I just talking about things that we were there because we've been a part of each other's lives for so long. But just right. For those that are obviously meeting you for the first time, what were some of those early influences of music for you? Like, were you like, I want to be a musician?
Man. Well, like you, I learned how to play drums listening to music. So you go and you do the classics, right? You listen to the Beatles, right? You listen to Ringo. You listen to the Rolling Stones, Charlie Watts. You listen to Led Zeppelin, John Bonham. You listen to all that to learn how to play music. And I was doing this in the 80s. So even then, those bands are 20 years old. Mm-hmm. But you get an appreciation for the older music because what was popular at the time for us, it was hair metal, which is also cool, and I also have a fond place in my heart for it. But yeah, you start with the classics and work your way up. I played jazz in high school, same way you did, right?
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of that. Don't discount a genre just because I don't listen to that.
Yeah.
There's one or two good songs in every genre.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes it comes down to the players. Like, who can you learn from that just stylistically? Because the thing that a lot of people don't probably pay much attention to or even know is, drummers like Peter Criss. He was a jazz drummer before he joined Kiss. Same thing for Charlie Watts.
That's right.
So you've got all these, different instrumentations that are overlining each other, and then suddenly, okay, now jazz is influencing rock is influencing blues, country's influencing
John
whatever.
Densmore for Doors.
Yep.
Straight up jazz drummer. Yeah.
Yep.
What influenced them? And I had a guy tell me a couple of days ago, man, in your music I can hear so many styles, and I'm like, yeah, you can, because everything that I hear and floating around in my head eventually makes it into a song somehow.
Yeah.
And sometimes the genre is determined before time, and sometimes you figure that out in the studio.
Yeah. Well, and I think I probably saw that come most to life when I saw them do some of the remixes of the Beatles for Circus Soleil, because they would take a bass line from one song and put it into another song. And it's like it almost seems, it's like it almost fits, or it does fit. But the thing is, if that's your first exposure to it, you think that's how it's supposed to. Oh, they meant to do that, but really, it's
But if you hear the original and you hear this new version, like that's a perfect example. That Cirque du Soleil remix of all that is amazing.
Yeah,
because it's not only is it different versions of songs that you love, but some of it's the same, and they put two of them together, and like you said, and they fit, and that's just amazing. And that's the great thing about music. There's always something new.
Mm-hmm.
You never get tired of anything. I mean, even today, I'll find stuff on the radio or going through Apple Music, and I say, oh, look, there's a new band. Oh, cool, I like these guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something new. You can never get bored.
Yeah. Hanging out with Jason Davis this week on Records and Recovery as we talk about like something new. I think my favorite quote as of late has been Paul McCartney. He said, "We all have the same 12 notes of the song that hasn't been written yet." And I think that's
That's
the
a good
part,
line.
especially for people who are either new to an instrument or maybe new to songwriting. What would you say to encourage them on kind of how, obviously every songwriter is different, but the process, because again, we all have the same notes, no matter what instrument you choose to play it on, it's hearing it in your head and then how that comes out through whatever you're trying to say.
Just do it. Honestly, just do it. When I started out trying to write songs 40 years ago, they weren't good by any stretch of the imagination. They weren't good. I mean, not even my grandmother would have said, "Oh, that's a good song, baby."
Right.
No, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, and then eventually you get to where you can write in your voice, and it sounds like something that you wrote. You and I have been doing that a lot lately. Like we'll write something together, and I mean it is just tight. It's quick. It's compact. We wrote one the other day. I wrote my portion in the pool, and yeah, I don't know where you were,
Who
but
knows? Yeah.
we're just sending it back and forth on notes, right?
Yeah.
At 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, beginning to end, and we had an amazing song.
Yeah.
That was Matches.
Yeah.
That was Matches.
Well, and I think
That's one that we're going to be working on soon here.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the part is, I used to be, I always heard write all the bad songs so you have room to write the good ones. But you have to get all of those out because even if it's a phrase or a way you played with words, I think that's the thing that always drew me to, John Lennon's lyrics is the way he would just play with words.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with the older stuff, write it, and it's going to teach you something. Even if it's not good, it's going to teach you something. And then who knows? I mean, there's going to be something in there that you write that you're like, where did that even come from? Because I don't remember writing that, and it's really good.
Right.
Now, I wrote a song in church once, and I still have it today. It's out on all my stuff. I don't really think I wrote that. You know what I'm saying? Somebody came through me and wrote that, and I had nothing to do with it. I just sat and I just wrote it down.
And I do that too, because especially like if if a sermon hits just about right, or you're reading a psalm, which is obviously a song meant to be put to music. What is it that we can put to that in common? Even may have not necessarily been how David may have meant for the tune to go, but it's left for interpretation. And you have so many artists that are gravitating and using, whether it's regurgitating Bible verses or it's just the way they see the imagery from scripture or from a sermon. And you talk about kind of feeling possessed, like something took over. I mean, Holy Spirit promptings on songwriting, especially with worship stuff or even just writing your pain away, is so great when you have where it just pours out onto the page.
I know, and that you've really reached that pinnacle when you're done writing the song. And like, where'd that come from? I don't even.
Yeah.
I was here, but I really wasn't here. And that comes from repetition and just like you said, you get the bad stuff out so the good stuff can come through. And sometimes you just like, whatever, just whatever's gonna happen, and then a great song comes from it.
Right. So good.
When you're not even trying is when it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Hanging out with Jason Davis this week on Records and Recovery. So, Jason, let's go back to little Jason. And what do you remember being the first either album or cassette that you bought with your own money?
Oh, all right. This is gonna highlight my geekiness, but that's fine. It was probably the Monkees, because they were coming in. Well, actually, it wasn't the first. Man, okay, if I actually go back and think about it, it wasn't a cassette, it was an album. It was No Kidding vinyl. And it was Kenny Loggins' 1982 High Adventure.
Nice.
yeah. That was the first album I bought with my own money.
Mm, that's good. And the thing too, I do want to point out because you and I, being Monkees fans, can easily sound like we're that old. We are not. The Monkees had a resurgence in the '80s thanks to
Yeah,
MTV.
we got the second wave.
Yeah,
got the
we were
second
the second wind when it came to the Monkees. But still, when you know that they were an incarnation of the Beatles' Hard Day's Night, you know, that movie inspired the whole series and, you know, creating the band and did they play their instruments and all that stuff. What's cool about it is how much the more they got gelled as a group by doing the show, it gelled them musically, just like when the Beatles were all sharing a hotel room and they were writing in the room together. It was a different dynamic versus when they were all on their own with wives and so forth.
That's just like real bands. That's how you gel as a band.
Yeah.
You put four dudes on instruments in a garage, and yeah, you'll get good. Put those four dudes in a van and put them on the road. You're gonna be great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever your music is, you're gonna be really good at playing it. You know,
Yeah.
because that's how that works. That's how that happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that it happened with the Monkees, that doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I know in my brain, I think of myself always as a drummer first. Are you still that way, even though you play other things?
Yep. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I always consider myself when people ask me, "Well, what do you play?" Lately, past 10 years or so, I do consider myself a guitar player. So I say, "Well, I play guitar," but when they find out I play other things, I'm like, "Well, my main instrument is drums."
Mm-hmm.
But I play everything else because I wanted to be able to play those songs that I learned how to play growing up
Yeah.
on the bass, on guitar. I'm teaching myself piano so I can do it on piano.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because I love music so much that I want to be able to be good at all of it if I can.
Yeah.
I'm not good at any of it, I guess, but I'm a little good at most of it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love too, is that I always say drums are my first love. And then I've, you
Yeah.
know, along the way, you know, found an interest and a passion for other instruments. But guitar is the one thing that I always struggle with. I tried it like 3 or 4 times in my life, and I'm just in awe of those who can just, like, my hands just don't want to do it. I just cannot make it happen. So
My guitar playing, even my lead stuff, is very, very simple, very basic. It's nothing cosmic. If there's any shredding to be done, I hire people for that. But I do like being able to sit down and play a song on guitar. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to get to that stage where I can do it on piano. You can do that on piano, and I'm envious of that. I can't sit down and play a song on piano
Yeah.
because when I tell people, I'm teaching myself piano, oh, we'll play something.
Right.
Mary had a
Right.
little. I mean, I can do that.
Right.
You don't want to hear that, but that's where I'm at right now.
That's why I learned John Lennon's Imagine, because it's simple, but it's, you know, anything in C,
Once I
you can play
that,
just about anything, you know, and people
once I could play
identify with
I was
that.
like, okay,
Yeah.
great, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Because again,
play
I don't
that.
want to just be good to the passive, you know, play me a song. I want like even other musicians to go, dude, you know, that's
Yeah,
the pat on the back you're looking for, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's great. Hanging out with Jason Davis this week on Records and Recovery. So, Jason, we've talked about influences and early stuff. What has been maybe a band or an album that you gravitated to at a time that just felt really heavy?
A heavy band and a heavy album.
And the music doesn't necessarily have to be heavy, but just like your heart was just weighed with, you know, breakups and, you know, whatever was going on in life.
And that album spoke to me.
Yeah.
God, man, there's so many. It's hard to. Yeah, see, now you put me on the spot. There's so many albums, and I was thinking about this the other day. Back in the day, you and I we'd go out and we'd get a cassette,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd listen to that cassette front and back, front and back, front and back, all the time.
Yeah.
So you get the deep cuts of it, right?
Sure.
For example, Huey Lewis Sports.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a bad song on it
Right.
because we listened to the entire thing over and over and over again,
Yeah.
right? Cinderella, Long Cold Winter. not a
Mm-hmm.
bad song on it,
Mm-hmm.
because we listen to the thing over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, those are the albums to me that always resonate, and I even today I can go back to, yes, 90125, not a bad song on it. So that's kind of how I look at it. If I have an album that I can put on and listen front to back
Mm.
and be like, okay, that's a complete work. There's
Yeah.
no garbage, there's no filler on that. That is awesome. That's what I tend to do. Michael Jackson's Thriller is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Not a bad song on it.
Yeah.
And every one of those things went on to be a single, right?
Right.
So that's how I look at it, and those are my emotional touchstones, because those albums, when things are at their darkest for me, I can go back and I can listen to those. I have a whole set list on my phone of uh, top 10 albums,
Yeah.
and I can go back and listen to any of them. Kenny Loggins' High Adventure is on there.
Mm-hmm.
So they 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 get me through bad things, and I've been in combat and over Iraq and Afghanistan. I would, in the downtimes of the flight and whatnot, I'd put music on
Mm-hmm.
just as a way to kind of calm and chill the situation, because very stressful, So I'd put music on, and music's what got me through
Yeah. So,
and allowed me to do what it did.
yeah. So when you used to fly, like, were you able to have music on when you're flying? I would think that would somehow interfere
Yeah,
with
so
communication.
we've got all the radios on, right? So as long as we're listening to the radio, we would pipe the the sound in to the headphones
Mm-hmm.
so that we could hear in one ear the music, and I've got the radio. So I'm not missing anything that I'm supposed to miss. I'm talking to everybody on the radio I'm supposed to talk to.
Yeah.
But in every mission there's always like just lulls.
Sure.
Those missions were 14 hours long. There's not 14 hours of action,
Right.
right? Um, but the missions themselves are very stressful. So we would put music on, and when it got to be, something pops off, we'd cut it off and focus and do what we had to do. But music was a way for me and the rest of the crew to kind of just, all right, let's just calm down, let's
Yeah.
just chill out for a second, let's just listen to some music,
Do you
and
remember
that
what some of
that
those
worked.
selections were?
Um, for me, honestly, for a lot was jazz. It was just like the laid back jazz. I got into Vince Guaraldi. He's the guy who does the Peanuts
Mm-hmm.
uh, music, right?
Yeah.
I got really into all of his stuff from the '60s. His albums are incredible. Just a three piece, and that dude must have had 12 fingers. I don't know how in the heck he played what he played on the piano,
Sure.
and it was just glorious. But it's very soothing and very relaxing, and not aggressive or bah.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that's what I needed. I just needed, you know, that's my chill pill.
Yeah. So I know for me, as I've gotten older, there were artists that I didn't necessarily find myself a fan of in their day, but as I get older, I gravitate to them. So like a Neil Young or a Tom Petty, who have been those artists for you that you grew into?
Oh yeah. I actually had to grow into Rush,
Mm.
just because when I'm a young drummer and everybody's like, dude, you got to listen to Rush. You got to listen to Rush.
So
Well,
intimidating.
12-year-old me, well, it was intimidating, but I also, at the time, I did not like Geddy Lee's voice.
Mm.
I just didn't.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to appreciate exactly what he was doing. I was like, man, his voice is so high.
Yeah.
Yeah, but listen to what he's playing and
Oh, I
singing
know.
that high.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I got to a point, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Um, what was another one? A lot of the blues stuff. It took me a while to get into the blues,
Mm.
because a lot of it, when you're younger, you're like, yeah, whatever. But you get older, and you kind of get an appreciation for, where did rock come from?
Yep.
Well, it came from blues.
Yep.
And let me show you. And
Yep.
so you start listening to some of that, some of the old blues albums, and then the people who have taken the blues in a different direction, Joe Bonamassa, for example. um, that is kind of when I listen to stuff now, like new stuff, I listen to that.
Yeah. See, I found myself on the other side. Like, it wasn't cool in the 80s to tell your friends that you were listening to blues music because you're like, that's old stuff, But I loved, you talk about, listening to Rush and kind of it being intimidating. That blues for me was that. Like, okay, this is simple, in the pocket. You can build layers around it, and sometimes, the drummer can, take over, and sometimes they're just there to hold it all together, right? So I learned a lot of the foundational stuff from listening to blues. So like Jeff Healey Band was probably one I gravitated to because he was kind of cool and hip, but also his band was just a 3-piece band, and they all had to be tight, and it's some of the best songs. Yeah. So for me,
and the way he played guitar, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, to when someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan is like in awe of Jeff Healey, he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
he's good.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that too. I feel like now I'm at that phase of life where I want to encourage the next generation of drummers or the next generation of musicians. So I'm always like, you're never too old to start playing. Find something, a song or a band that you like, and emulate that. Who were those drummer influences for you though? Like when you were early on, like specifically, I know you mentioned Charlie Watts. Anybody else in that?
Yeah. Ringo for sure. Bunny Carlos for Cheap Trick.
Mm-hmm.
Very deep pocket guy, but he played these cool little fills. Aerosmith. Joey Kramer?
Yeah.
Just power.
Yeah.
But also he could lay on the backbeat and be, just holding it together. Like you said, at their heart, Aerosmith was a blues band, just plugged in and cranked up to 11.
100%.
So early on, that's what influenced my playing. And then when I get a little bit older, Carter Buford for Dave Matthews, that cat, he's also a trained jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And just his little fills, and he's the first guy I ever heard had those little splash cymbals. But he had like 14 of them, right? They're all over the place. So,
yeah.
I started incorporating a lot of that stuff in. In fact, my set used to have like 3 or 4 splash cymbals. And when I play live, I'd love to have a couple, but I ain't fool with trying to set those up anymore.
Yeah, I think I saw this week where you can actually get a splash mount for your dash and mount it to your vent. So when you're playing on the steering wheel, you can just...
don't tell me that. I'm totally going to do that.
You need a splash in your car.
Totally do that. I'm already playing air drums, right?
Right.
But if I actually have something,
That's right. That's the way to go. Hanging out with Jason David this week on Records and Recovery. Jason, I know we talked about like albums that have impacted us. Has there ever been just a one song, like maybe not necessarily a huge fan of the band, but there's been a song that's impacted you in some manner? I know it's hard to pick one. It's like picking your children,
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I mean, there's so many that are popping into my head. Anything from the Beatles. So let's just start there. You can't go wrong with the Beatles, right? Anything off of Revolver or Rubber Soul, right? So let's narrow that down. Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
It only has one key.
Right.
But the drums on that thing are ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the cover? Did you ever hear the cover that Living Colour did of that song?
I did.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So good.
It's incredible. The world had never heard drums like that. They were experimenting.
Yeah.
So they took a compressor. What a compressor does in music terms is you have all these peaks and valleys in a song. A compressor just kind of squishes the peaks down.
Yep.
So the peaks are here, and it brings the valleys up. So the quiet parts get louder, and the loud parts kind of get quiet, right?
Yep.
Well, they did that and compressed the crap out of it for the drum set.
Yep.
And it made it sound like that, and it sounds like, oh my God, it's in my face.
Yeah.
And that became how you record rock drums going forward.
Yep.
That's why drums sound the way they do in the 70s, is because of that song.
Yeah, and the thing
So
I always like to point out with Ringo is that he was a left-handed drummer playing a right-handed kit. So a lot of times
that's
he
right.
would create a beat to go with the song based on what he was capable of playing. George or the guys would want him to play one thing, and he's like, I can't play that. And
I
so
can't play that, but I can do this.
yep, and
Yeah.
it blew our minds. Which I know for me, also as a left-handed drummer playing a right-handed kit, I early on I think not even knowing that about Ringo till years later, like I like the idea of just play it because I can play it, and then if someone else like that's unhuman what you just did right there, because
That's unhuman.
you never know what licks you're gonna get. You never know. If nothing else, you're at least playing to your strength.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way he does fills, here come on flat top, he come right,
Mm-hmm.
and that little fill is doodle 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 doodle.
Mm.
In your head, in everybody's head, you think it's going from highest drum to lowest drum.
Yep.
It is not
Mm-mm.
because he's left-handed. He was doing the beat, and when he would switch over. His left hand would have the lead.
Yeah.
So it's the second tom. So that lick is actually doodle 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 doodle. It's the other way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until they did
The
the things on
remasters.
Disney.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then they had all these little preview things, and um, Ringo was talking about because it was generating a bunch of hype, and
Yeah.
Ringo was talking about I played the part the way I had to play it,
Mm-hmm.
so people think it's one way and it's the other, and that blew my mind because for 40 years I've been playing it the other way.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like that. I love stuff like that.
That's great.
It, you don't know until you hear it from the master.
Yeah. What is that go-to song that you just love to play?
Um, wow, good God, now I got so many. It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Like on drums, again, you go to Zeppelin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything by Zeppelin, AC/DC,
Yeah.
anything by AC/DC. You like one song, you like them all. Why?
Sure.
Because the drum beat's the same.
Right.
It's just strong, four on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's power.
Yeah.
So if you just want to get some aggression out, throw some AC/DC on and get to it. Um, when it comes to guitar, uh, like I said, I'm a very basic guitar player. So as long as I can, hit the power chord and do a little and get back to the power chord, then I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a go-to on guitar or bass, I guess. I try to stick to my genre for guitar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm playing something, it's typically my stuff nowadays.
Sure.
To be honest, so what's my go-to? Shameless plug. One of my songs. You know, getting ready to go out and play some shows. So I've been playing Brand New Day. I've been playing Every Win. I've been playing um, Mind Over Matter. The songs that you and I have written together that we've recorded and put out.
Yep.
So, American Outlaw.
Yeah.
Those
I
are my
would say,
go-tos right now.
yeah, I would say on drums, I love playing Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. That just
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
'cause it's got
texture
that.
of the drums on that and the
Yeah,
tempo
yeah.
change. I love that. I also anything Motley Crue also on drums, just because I mean
Oh yeah, you gotta
Tommy
have
Lee.
that.
I mean, come on, we haven't talked about him, but he's definitely
Does your
you know,
drum set go and spin
mine does
to
not
roller
spin
coaster?
anymore. The axle is broken. I'm older these
Oh,
days, so
that's
I
a
can't
darn
let the
shame.
blood rush to my head
Darn
like I
shame.
used to. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I find
Whatever.
when it comes to either piano or bass, I just like pocket songs. So when
Yeah, yeah, and
you
that's
just you get into that
yeah, that's
pocket
right.
and you just lay it down, and then if you solo, fine. If you don't, it's still something that just you feel it.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you said that. I had a teacher once try to tell me, okay, you have to count this section in order to
Mhm.
play it right.
Yeah.
I'm like, but why can't I just feel it and play it right. He said, well, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can.
Right.
Because I can't count it.
Watch
but I
me.
can feel
Yeah.
it.
Right.
And watch me. I'm dead on it. And I was.
Yeah.
He's like, but you're supposed to be able to count that. I'm like, I can't do the 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 1 EN. I can't. My brain doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I can hear it, and I know what it's supposed to sound like, and I make it sound like that.
That's great. Jason Davis has been our guest this week, of course, on all platforms. Check out Jason Davis Band and a part of Velvet Midnight Records. Jason, thanks as always for your time, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Records and Recovery is a Spacebird Media production and a part of the Thesis Radio Network. Find more episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts or at thesis.com.